Well, we will of course continuing with Who Built the Moon. To begin with, I have a slight problem. That is, I have 16,400 pictures, and I'm already at chapter 5, and there is no way that I can possibly make these 16,000 pictures fit into the entire book, unless I let the pictures last for 1 second each, and that will exclude you from the possibility of pausing. And of course I am presuming that you're watching the video in full screen. If you're not, then you're gonna miss out. If you are watching it on a smartphone, iPhone, Android, you will not get the benefit of the pictures in any form or fashion. So I will have to somehow devise to bring all 16,000 pictures to you in some form or fashion. I'm sorry to say that, but it's simply impossible, because I'm still only in folder 1 out of 6 folders, and they're all going in alphabetic order. And pretty much where I am now in folder 1 will be, let me see, there will be folder 1, 1x, picture 1x42, and we got 6 folders, and they're all going up to Z in the whole alphabet. So I have a problem, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to find a solution to that problem. So just to refresh your memory, the moon's diameter is 2,160 miles. Its circumference around equator is 6,782.4 miles. Each frame, each picture that you're looking at is on the latitude, meaning from left to right, 98.3 miles. Longitude, meaning from top to bottom, is 44.84 miles. And that is a total of 4,004.21 square miles. Each image is 4.74 degrees on the latitude, and on the longitude it's 2.38 degrees. So that's just to sum up, to give you an idea if you're new to this. But if you are new to this, I will recommend you go back to Who Built the Moon, chapter 1, 2, and 3, and of course number 4, to get an idea what it is I'm trying to present to you, because the moon is not what we think it is. It is an artificial satellite to our planet. How it got there, I don't know. If God made it, as Genesis says he did, I believe that God made the moon as it is, hollow, and in its size, its construct, for a specific purpose. What that purpose is may be revealed on chapter 5 here, because chapter 5 is called The Bringer of Life. So let's look into what that actually entails. The book Who Built the Moon is written by Christopher Knight and Alan Butler. Christopher Knight is the co-author of the best-selling The Hiram Key, and Alan Butler is the author of the best-selling book called Civilization 1. And these two people are not by any means unintelligent. They know exactly what they're talking about, and they do not have a scientific entry, but you should not say that people, because they don't have a certain PhD degree, being a Mikio Kuku, that they don't know what they're talking about. It is very easy for people on this planet, especially in the Western world, to judge a book by its cover. And that's where humanity in the Western world is going very wrong, and that is why humanity in the Western world is on its downfall. And it seems like, as signs of the times, that it's too late in the game to change anything regarding that. We are arrogant. We think we know it all. And when it comes to the nitty-gritty, we don't know a damn thing about anything. It's only very few people that knows the truth. And unfortunately, those people who know the truth are unfortunately our enemy. That's just how it is. But it's up to us. Where do we want to be in this end game that this is? And of course, I am only working out from a Christian standpoint, which Google and YouTube, well, they are the same. They really hate. And they're doing whatever they possibly can to destroy anything that I'm trying to say, because they already know who they're dealing with. They're dealing with a guy who's not going to shut up and put up, or put up and shut up. He's going to say exactly what he thinks and what he feels like, and he's going to bring you the truth. He's not going to sit here and lie to you. He's not going to sit here and ask you for money for bringing you truth, because we are all in the same sinking ship, and no one leaves Earth, not even the evil ones. It has proven disastrous, their attempts to time travel and travel elsewhere in our solar system. There is no escape for them, and there's certainly no escape for you and I, because we don't even have that technology. So that's why that they have built all these bunkers underground to survive, because they have found out that there is no way that they can go out there and make it through what is coming to this planet in very, very near future. So, Chapter 5, The Bringer of Life. We have seen just how peculiar the moon is in so many ways. Our next step was to look into how our next door neighbor in the cosmos actually affects life on Earth. First of all, we could not ignore the myth of the full moon bring out madness and other evils in form of more violence, more suicide, more accidents, and more aggression. Ideas that are possibly as old as history itself. The belief that the full moon causes mental disorders and strange behavior was particularly widespread throughout Europe in the Middle Ages. But is there any scientific evidence to support these beliefs? There has been many investigations into this subject, and some has produced surprising results. Research carried out by the medical team at a hospital in Bradford, England, set out to test the hypothesis that the incidence of animal bites increased at the time of a full moon. Using retrospective observational analysis at their accidents and emergency departments, they have investigated the patterns of patients who attended from 1997 to 1999 after being bitten by an animal. The number of bites in each day was compared with the lunar phase in each month, and they found that the incidence of animal bites rose significantly at the time of full moon. With the period of a full moon as the reference point, the incidence ratio of the bites of all other periods of the lunar cycle was significantly lower. They concluded that the full moon is associated with a significant increase in animal bites to humans. Of course, we must remember that correlation does not equate to causation. The pattern they found may be strange, statistically blip, or even if it's real, it could be entirely coincidental with phases of the moon. Without any suggestion on how the moon could cause increase in animal aggression towards humans, it's not possible to consider any connection as proven. Another study looked into human aggression at the lunar synodic cycle occurring in Dade County, Florida. Data of 5 aggressive and all violent human behaviors were examined to determine whether a relationship existed between the two. These included looking at the pattern of homicides, suicides, fatal traffic accidents, aggravated assaults, and psychiatric emergency room visits. The team concluded that the homicides and aggravated assaults demonstrated a statistically significant clustering of cases around the full moon. Psychiatric emergency room visits clustered around the first quarter and shown a significantly decreased frequency around the new and full moon. The suicide curves showed correlations with both aggravated assaults and fatal traffic accidents, suggesting, they say, a self-destructive component for each of these behaviors. The existence of a biological rhythm of human aggression which resonates with the lunar synodic cycle was postulated. Now, I want to say something to this, and you can scorn me for it. I don't really care. I believe that a part of the evil entities, how big it is, I don't know. But I believe that a part of this evil entity are residing at Saturn. Saturn, according to the Bible, is also called the dragon. It is also called the evil one. It represents Lucifer. It represents the evil ones. You will find that in Revelation 12, the sign in the sky on September 23rd on 2018. Where all the planets are in conjunction with each other, Venus in the Virgo womb, and Saturn right outside between her legs, waiting to devour the child. But that did not happen. We know that. And what I'm going to say here, when Cassini spacecraft went up and was destined to go to Saturn and take pictures of its moons, Cassini also picked up something else. It picked up a sound, and a NASA employee who was working with pictures from space, all kind of pictures of space, was particularly looking in to the rings of Saturn, and he discovered something very striking, and that is that some of these rings are showing a sinus curve. They're showing a frequency, and that frequency is sound. Cassini spacecraft picked up that sound. Not that particular sound from that picture that this NASA employee was looking at, but it has also, in many pictures from Saturn and its rings, shown that there are some kind of vessels in the vicinity of these rings. And it's also been revealed by NASA that these rings are not dust, they are crystals. And the best medium to transport frequencies are through crystals. When we entered into after 2012, where everybody thought that the end was near, that the world would end, which was completely ridiculous. I did not buy into that because I know that's not the case. I believe what the Bible is saying. I don't believe the Mayans. But what the Mayan tablet, the calendar that ended in 2012, signifies an end in an age where people are gullible, where people transform from being gullible people to not putting up anymore, beginning to see that something is wrong and lifting their eyebrows to the establishment. Enough of the BS. That's the tendency. That is what the Ryan calendar, or this disc that they found, is signifying. The end of people being persuaded by the media. And we are seeing a rise since 2012 of people who are speaking out and not being silent anymore. They are waking up that something is not right. Now, if the hypothesis that is suggested regarding Saturn, that Saturn is sending out frequencies, and the moon is an artificial object in our sky, and my pictures shows that there are numerous of so-called craters that looks like craters, but if you look closely on them, you can actually see that they are not craters. They look more like a dish. So could it be possible that a signal or signals are being transmitted to the moon, and from the moon, just like here on Earth, that a signal is transmitted from a transmitter to a receiver and then being boosted and sent over to another receiver and then boosted and then sent further, just like the cell phone signals between the cell phone towers. There is an increase in energy, or in energy of transportation of these frequencies. So could it just be that these frequencies sent from the Saturn rings or from Saturn itself are being enhanced, magnified, or multiplied, or intensified, amplified? That's actually the right word, amplified, and then beamed down to Earth to keep you and I in a gridlock mentally, mind control, if you want to say that, to keep humanity locked in a certain mindset that makes them more or less, unless they are saved, unless they are walking with God in their spirit, keeping people locked in and keeping people doing the things that they are doing, as those who are not learning from the past are doomed to repeat itself, meaning carnage after carnage, bad decision after bad decisions, keeping humanity in a certain state of suppression, mind control, suppression. That's very likely, because that is what 5G is part of. So if we take it from Saturn, the signal is being sent from Saturn, it is being sent to the moon and amplified and sent to Earth. But now they have found out that people are no longer just putting up. After 2012, people have had enough of all these lies, and that is actually also in the time period where all the alternative news channels flourished and sprung out of nowhere. And that is what Google is trying desperately to kill and determine to be fake news. And it's not going to be long before our kind of people who is speaking the truth is going to be punishable by law, that what we are saying is detrimental to the society of America and the Western world, and therefore we can be prosecuted and sentenced to jail time for speaking the truth. So could it be that the signal from Saturn, amplified from the moon, sent to Earth, has no longer the desired effect because people are waking up? Something is going on. That the 5G is now being another amplification of the signal coming off the moon down to Earth and then distributed out through the 5G system, which is a complete mind control device. And it's already proven it is a mind control device. And these 5G transmitters is going to be almost at eye level at every freaking street corner in the entire Western world. They're not worrying so much about the third world because they don't know and they won't know. And if they are asking questions, if they come to some knowledge, well, they're going to find some way of destroying them. You get my drift? So that might be that the Saturn signal amplified at the moon, no longer transmitted to the planet Earth, is having the desired effect. So therefore they down here have to amplify even further and even cause sickness in people and even mental breakdowns, or make people go nuts on each other, creating chaos, so they can bring in the solution to the problem, the Hegelian dialect. That could be a possibility. I'm not saying it is so, but ever since I got over to this country in 2008, I knew when I was back in Denmark living there for the first 39 years of my life, I knew that this world was a sad and beautiful place. I knew things were wrong. I knew that something ain't right. But I couldn't really put my finger on it. And then I met my sweet Elma, which I've now been married to for 10 years, been with her for 11 years, known her for 12 years, and she's the kindest person that I have ever met. And if you want to have a successful marriage, don't look upon achievements and compatibility in your relationship. What you need to look upon with your partner: does your partner, man or woman, have kindness? That is the root to a successful relationship between a man and a woman living in a marriage as one flesh. That is kindness. Out of kindness comes love. And love is the driving force for everything. Everything. So, when I got over here, my wife pretty much sat me down, looked me in the eyes, and she said, "Henning, I want you to know that we are living in the end times. And I looked at her, not saying anything. All I knew was it felt like my heart dropped to the ground and was not beating for a slight moment, because I knew what she said to me there was the truth. It was a knowledge that I have had all along, but were not exactly sure to put a name and put it on a shelf. But when she told me, I knew. And from that moment on, 2008, and up to this day, it has been my quest to speak out and let you know and give you warning in advance that something very terrible or very soon to come to this earth that we live upon. And I'm no saint. I'm no holy man. I'm just a human being. I'm a sinner. We all sinners. But it has been my quest to speak the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. To you out there, about everything. Giving you my dispositions, giving you what I know, giving you what I think could be, what I theorize about, and hopefully in that work bring people to Christ. Just one. And in the time that I have been on YouTube, which started in 2009, which really took off in 2010 during the Gulf oil spill, and that's from that moment on YouTube really decided they don't like me, because I gained a lot of popularity in 2010. I had millions of views on my videos, subscribers likewise, and then they decided to go after me by giving me community strikes and copyright strikes to kill off my channels, and they succeeded killing off 4 channels between 2010 to 2012, and they're desperately trying to do that still. But I'm very careful now in what I do, so that they cannot go in and give me a community strike or copyright strike. But they can do something else with their AI algorithms, and that is, every time that Henning Kemner is producing a video, they're gonna bury that down in the algorithm so deep that you will not know unless you click the bell for every time I do an upload. You would not know unless you go to my channel to look for something new that I actually made something. And I also noticed that in that period, 2012 until this day, that videos that I have uploaded are being deleted, and I didn't delete them. Google did. Why would I delete any of my material? Because every material I put on my channel is important material. Even if it's not my own, it's still something I wish to administer to you, to let you know, because you might not know, and you might not never know unless I did so. So not everything on my channel is my own, but I also make sure that I give credits to where I get that material from, so that people can look at my material but also go over to that particular place that I give credit to and get further information about status quo for humanity, especially in the Western world. But the most important thing is to bring people to Christ. And as I said, just to bring one is a major feat. Not that I'm going to sit and, wow, I am the SRHIT. No, it's not like that. But I know for everyone who is saved, choose to be saved, they are singing and celebrating in heaven that they got one more with them in the right place. And in a period of 2010 and today, I know for a fact that 5 people have written me personally and told me, because of what you do, I have now been baptized and saved. And that makes me so happy. It don't make me feel like I'm special, but it just makes me happy, because there's one more and 3 more on the right path, in the path of love, compassion, and a secure place for eternity. That just makes me happy. That's it. It just makes me happy to know that they made a decision. And if I was the instrument to make them realize that they had to do this, because it's the truth, it's just wonderful. It's as simple as that. It's just wonderful. And I'm so happy for them. But we are under mind control from the mainstream media. And we are also under mind control from a lot of people on YouTube who claiming they want the best for us. And they're leading us astray. And here I'm talking about the New Ages. They're phenomenal in catching people who is in disarray on where to go. And people are believing that BS that they're coming out with, because it sounds so sweet. The only thing that the New Ages got right, the only thing they got right, is the terminology, love. Everything else that they're uttering is deception. But the key for peace in this world is love, but not in the fashion that the New Ages claim is going to be. That's not how it works. Not at all. So let me continue. Okay. Whilst these investigations were carried out carefully and scientifically, it is important to remember that there are dozens of other studies that have failed to identify similar correlations. If there is some substance behind lunar myths, it is yet to be proven. However, we feel that such a relationship is not yet beyond reason, as the moon exerts considerable gravitational effects on the Earth, creating a tidal movement of waters in our oceans, and humans are made of nearly 80% of water. Whether or not lunar cycles affect our lives, solar ones certainly do. And now we go to, still in the same chapter called The Bringer of Life, to a chapters called The Four Seasons. Let me have a slurp to clear my throat. The Four Seasons. At the time of writing of these words, the leaves on the trees here in Britain are beginning to be tinged with brown. The days are growing shorter and the nights getting longer. As this happens, the average temperature of each day begins to fall, and much of our flora and fauna goes into a dormant state. Of course, the same seasonal change is happening all across the northern hemisphere, at latitudes between the Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle. The Tropic of Cancer is equator, and the Arctic Circle. Meanwhile, countries in the southern hemisphere are entering spring, and new growth is beginning to stir as the days lengthen and the average day temperature increases. All of us who do not live on or near the equator are familiar with the pattern of changing of seasons and the effect that these cycles have on the way of we live our life. To our ancestors in the northern parts of Europe, Asia and America, the onset of winter must have been a time of fear and doubt, whilst the first buds of spring would have been a merciful relief, with the signal that there would soon be fresh food to eat. What most of us don't stop to think about is why seasons happen at all. It's common misunderstanding to imagine it has something to do with how close the Earth is to the Sun. It is not. It is due to the angle of the planet in relation to the Sun, which is about 22.5 degrees from what might be described as vertical position. The diagram below, they say, well, our Earth's axis from north to south is tilting 22.5 degrees approximately. And when it's summer on the northern hemisphere, the northern pole is leaning towards the Sun. When it comes around halfway, that North Pole is beginning to lean away from the Sun slightly, and more and more and more, and that brings colder climate to the northern hemisphere, where the southern hemisphere, the South Pole, is now pointing further towards the Sun, and they are beginning to experience their spring, and further on their summer, and then their fall will also come, and winter, because it goes back and forward. The Earth is not moving back up and down or from side to side, but it's keeping its orientation at these 22.5 degrees. And if you move that around in a circle around the Sun, you will realize at some point in time, if you take your index finger and just slightly tilt it, and then move it in a circle in front of you, you can see, if you keep the middle of the circle, that is our Sun, you will be able to see that at some point in time, your tip of your index finger will be pointing towards the center, but when you come over on the other side, is pointing away from the center, where the south is pointing towards the Sun, and that is what is our seasons. And our circle around the Sun is divided up in 4 quarters, meaning spring, summer, fall, and winter. That's how it works, and it works like that on the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. But there is more landmass on the northern hemisphere than there is on the southern hemisphere. And the northern hemisphere is the breadbasket of this planet, pretty much. I can tell you one thing, United States of America, maybe not so much anymore, but it used to be 1/4 of the entire world's food chamber. 1/4. That's how fruitful our land is in America. But that is coming to an end. An abrupt end. And this growing season of grains, because of all the floodings, because of all the precipitation we have had in America, it's not going to be the land of plenty. It's going to be the land of shortage. And it's going to make the food prices skyrise at the end of this season. Many farmers in this country have simply just given up planting anything because it's simply too late. And the land is too moist, or it's underwater. There has to be a balance, but that balance is broken. And now we are witnessing a big problem in California now. Also, the valley where all the citrus, all our fresh produce, not just to America but to around the world, is being severely devastated. And as I have said in my video here of late, after the earthquake and the signature of the aftershocks, I am afraid that we are looking at a volcanic activity in California. And if that is the case, United States of America and its fresh produce industry is going to be decimated beyond repair. And that's going to have a significant influence on the entire world and the economy, especially for this country, of course. And that brings to light what Matthew 24 is saying, that there will be famine. And we are also witnessing that diseases and pestilences are beginning to emerge, because we have what they the evil ones are called global warming, which did not fly, so they called it climate change instead, to make it more suitable and for people to get a grip around. But they're still keeping to the idea that this climate change is due to human activity. Now, let me tell you something funny here regarding human activity. From the time of Adam and Eve up to this day, we have let out a lot of CO2. Of course we have. But that volcanic eruption Hawaii had, for that period it had it in Kilauea, it put out more CO2 into the atmosphere than humanity has done in all the time combined they have been on this planet. And let me repeat myself, because I have a major in biology. I know bloody freaking what I'm talking about. And there is no Mikio Kukuk or any Al Gore or any other idiot with a PhD that can tell me anything differently and convince me that I'm wrong, because I know I'm right. The more CO2 there is in our atmosphere, the more plant life is thriving. And our plant life meaning in our oceans, which is producing 90% of our oxygen, and on land, our trees are producing the last 10% of our oxygen. It is called photosynthesis, where CO2 is being obtained by these plants, and by photosynthesis they are producing oxygen for you and I to breathe, mammals and humans. It is called the ecological cycle or system. This is how it works. So we should praise CO2 in our atmosphere. But these evil people are determined to destroy the CO2 contents in our atmosphere, get rid of it, which would mean that everything creeping and crawling and walking on this planet will die. Even they will die. No CO2, no plant life. No plant life, no oxygen. No oxygen, no life on planet Earth. It's dead. It's simple as that. And I know that for a fact. I don't need to have a PhD, I only need to know the fact about CO2. What that is. It is the driving force for all organic life on this planet. What we need to be worried about is methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas, so CO2, but methane is a greenhouse gas to be reckoned with, because the methane released into the atmosphere by the melting of the Siberia permafrost, which have vast amounts of methane, is released into the atmosphere. And over a 10-year period, just 10 years of release of methane in those quantities that's being released right now, it is 100 times more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2 would be in 100 years. Now that's global warming that we can take and put a finger on. And that's not due to man's activity. It is due to that the Earth's core is heating up. And it doesn't help that they're spraying all these chemicals out of their airplanes, creating a metal layer between us and space, creating Earth to be some sort of thermal bubble, because normally when the sun rays hit the Earth, it heats up. It also maintains the heat of the Earth's core. But during night time, especially if it's a clear night, a lot of that heat is escaping straight out back into space to maintain equilibrium of Earth's climate. It's a natural process. But now they're spraying all these chemtrails, creating this metal shield to protect us against the harmful cosmic rays and the rays from the sun, in the belief that that is going to save us. They are then at the same time creating another big side effect, and that is that this heat naturally escaping from Earth cannot longer escape from Earth. It is seeping up and hitting these metal particulates that they have been spraying for years and decades now. And that heat is radiating back to Earth, creating a thermal bubble effect. The heat is being trapped. But the cosmic rays and the rays from the sun are still running straight through that particulate that they are spraying up there. It's not slowing it down. It's not helping. They're exacerbating the problem. There are no solution to this. The best would be that they stop what they're doing and just let nature take its course. Let it happen, because it will happen, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. It's just how it is. But they are exacerbating the problem, and they're blaming you and I for it by calling it climate change due to man's activity, which is a complete lie all the way through. And why do I know that? Because I know by my major in biology and knowledge about the ecosystem, how it works, that they are lying to you to their teeth. Every time you hear any of these idiots speaking about human activity causing these changes on planet Earth, you can have it from me, and you can take it true from me, that they are lying to you, and you're not to listen to what they have to say, because everything that comes out of their lips is lies and more lies. And what is the idea by all these lies that they are coming with? That is to make you feel like you're guilty. It is to make sure that they kind of encourage you to not make children, to multiply and be fruitful, because you will think, if you're that stupid, which most people are, unfortunately, they're not being informed in the school system, because that is flawed. It's ridiculous. Why do you think I'm not want to teach in this country? It's because the curriculum for education in this country is not to make people smart. It is to make you stupid. Common Core is to make you stupid. Do you know how you get your degree? That is to repeat and memorize, not to get smarter. And you have, if you know anything about the educational system of America now, that is, if you're a biologist and you want to look into geology, because those two things hang together like hand and glove. You can't separate those two, but they are being separated systematically by Darwin and by the Smithsonian Institute. You cannot cross-reference between biology and geology and oceanology, entomology. You can't. You can't do that. They won't allow you to cross-reference. They can cross-reference those who are in power behind these institutes. And they're sitting on the truth. They know. And they also know, if they're listening to my voice, that they know I'm right. That I know that they're lying to you. And that's why I can't teach in this country, because I'm not going to stand up in a classroom to some 6 years or 10-year-old pupils and tell them a lie when I know the truth. But I'm forced to, because of the Common Core and curriculum in this country. That's why I don't want to teach, because I cannot bring myself to lie to children. Who is our future? and need and deserve and must have the truth. I can't do that. How would I be able to live with myself being a teacher standing there every freaking day, Monday to Friday, and lying to my pupils? Because some common core and some curriculum developed in the satanic Washington. I just can't do that. And how can you do that, teachers, if you know the truth? How do you put up with that? Why don't you get out on the street and protest this? Saying enough. Because you know the truth. And we deserve the truth, especially children. We should not teach children to lie by lying ourselves. Oh man, that's wrong. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And that goes in everything in life. Everything. And you go down that path, why do you think we're going to end if everybody is lying to each other? In a marriage, without trust, we have nothing. So we are building a society built on mistrust. And when we have a society of mistrust, it's going to break down. It's going to fail. And it's going to bring all kinds of hardship with it, such as violence, suicides. I mean, everything from the book. Complete meltdown of our society. That's why I cannot stand and teach, because I am bound and signing on a contract that I am to abide to the curriculum and the common core of the educational system that is implemented in this country, and especially under the communist Obama regime, to make people or pupils even more stupid, growing up knowing nothing. All they know is to remember and to repeat, and then they will get their A. But if they stand out and ask questions, they will get an F. Even though they are right, they will flunk. It's just how America is today, and it's sad. It's very sad that our children are being decimated. But it's by design, because they want our children to be the perfect slave, one who just don't ask questions, because they can't ask questions, because they don't know, because no one taught them. No one gave off their knowledge for them to carry on to the next generation. They don't know anything. And that's one of the reasons for why our children is going to give up their own parents in the end days, when the persecution is going to take foot. Because they don't know. And they're not going to listen to their parents, because they have been taught to believe in authorities. And when we get to that point, we are living in a full-blown tyranny. We are living in a full-blown communist socialist regime. And all you need to do is look to China and see what that has done to a nation that was so rich on culture, had so much to offer to this world. What does China have to offer to this world except plastic products? Nothing. And China is today in this situation that they are equiescent. That if you took the communist regime out of China by force and let the people decide for themselves, they would not know how to exist and function without a communist leader telling them what to do. China is lost forever, because that generation that was there before the communists took over are now dead. So they can't administer knowledge and wisdom to the next generation, because that generation are now so brainwashed and don't know anything except communism is the right way. And that is exactly what they want for America. For you to be equiescent, stupid, don't ask questions. And a state in this America which is now equiescent is California. I must say, California, your days are numbered. If it's not by earthquake or volcanic activity, you are finished. There is no salvation for you. It's over for you. Permanently. Just how it is. You embrace illegal immigration. By law, migration is illegal and punishable by prison. And you're still saying it's okay for them to come in and take your jobs and take up more room there isn't for them. And they're not here to contribute. They're just here to get the free goods that they've been promised by the socialists. Because that's what socialism is about. Higher taxes and then give you free things. Oh man, what a trap that is. Because no matter how many taxes you're paying out of your hard-earned money, eventually the bank is going to run out of money in that state. And that state's going to plunge into being a third world state. Completely poor, completely broke. And if you look in America, on all the states that is run by Democrats, socialists, all communists if you like, all those states are failed states. Every single one of them. Every one of them failed. Everywhere where Democrats are in power, decimation is a fact. It's game over. You need to vote them out. You also need to vote the Republicans out, because they're no damn better. You need to say enough is enough. These two parties are not working for our best interests. We can no longer vote for them, because these two parties are in fact the same system. One is socialism, the other one is fascism. Another, no matter how you twist and turn this term, it's still the same system on the same coin. One side is socialism, you turn the coin, you get fascism. And no matter how you twist and turn that coin, in the end, out of that comes tyranny. That's a fact. History has showed us that. It don't work. There's only one thing that works. That is to run a society built on Judeo-Christian principles. That's the only way for us. Capitalism is okay, as long as it's not fretting on the small ones, eating them up. Free competition is okay, as long as it's fair trade, as long as it's fair to everyone, and there's no one out there that thinks they are the boss over everybody else. Because then we run back to the political system, socialism or fascism. It don't work, and it will never work. It will destroy a civilization. It will destroy a country in a matter of decades. And to you, dear Americans, I'm American myself, so to all of us, it's game over. It's really game over for America. It's over. There's only one way we can stop this. No, two ways. There's a good way and a bad way. Let's start with the bad way. That's a bloody revolution from the people against the government. That's not a good solution. Why? Because out of that comes chaos, turmoil, and it will take decades to stabilize. But also, who's going to take over? Who's going to run the country as leaders after such a revolution? Are we sure that those who are the victorious in such a revolution, in the end, is going to work for our best interests, for the nation as a whole? Look at France. Did it work with a French Revolution? No, it did not. And France, ever since the French Revolution, has been a hellhole for a Frenchman. For 300 years, that country has been a hellhole. And now it's completely destroyed by the influx of Muslims. Thanks to the European Parliament, or the European Unions and their socialist ideas of multiculturalism, which is bound to fail. It's obsolete. It don't work. It works in America because it's built on the principles of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, which is founded on Judeo-Christian principles. That's why America worked. But France was never built upon those principles. And especially not after the French Revolution, because those who took over after the French Revolution were Satanists, the Jacobins, who had an adamant hatred for God. They were inspired by Adam Weishaupt, who was the creator and founder of Illuminati. So nothing good will come out of a revolution for decades. Literally. Because there will be those victorious that will shape the new policies. And I'm sure that ain't gonna be in your best interest for many of you. But if we get on our knees, pray to God, and protest what's being done to you, and ask for God to help you out of this, you shall receive that help. And that Washington, that satanic Washington, that pedophile Washington, is going to go away. And America can return to its original and thrive and be prosperous again. But it's not going to happen. because most people in this country at this point in time are equiescent. They don't know from their head to their toe. They don't know how to solve a problem. And if they are trying to solve a problem, it is mostly in a violent fashion. And violence spawns more violence. It never solves anything. Such a revolution will not solve anything. It will make matters worse. And again, therefore there is only one solution. That's God. He's the reason for why you're breathing. So why don't you show your gratitude to Him that you are breathing? Because your soul in Hebrew means breath. He gave you breath. He gave you your soul, your breath, so that you can live. He takes that breath away, you won't live. But you will be a perfect slave to the system that they are implementing. I encourage you to return to Jesus, and I encourage you to die standing for your right to be a free man. Do not go down into bondage. Don't ever do that. But if you are being caught and put in a camp, spread the gospel in the camp to everyone, so that some might be saved. Because the camps are not to keep you alive and protected. The camps are to exterminate you. FEMA is not Federal Emergency Management Agency. The true meaning of FEMA is Federal Extermination Management Agency. You go into a FEMA camp, you die there. You will be exterminated. Every one of you. Go into a FEMA camp, you're dead. And in the time you're waiting for your death, spread the gospel. Have as many people as possible saved. As many as possible. Because you won't come out alive, any of you. Those FEMA camps are exactly the same model and the same system as Hitler in the Second World War. And the exact same system as China is having today. The exact same system that the old Soviet Union had, the Gulag. You go there, you die there. You will never be released. You die there. You need to understand that. This is the world we're living in. Don't be afraid, because these things must come to pass. See to that you're not troubled, because this is the sign of the times. You will be persecuted. You will be put to death, one way or the other. There's no escape. You are here. You can't fly away. You can't go anywhere. You can't seek refuge in the Ozarks of America and think that you're fine, that you're gonna make it. You have no bloody clue of what advanced military equipment that they are in possession of today. Every single soul on this planet is marked. They will find you wherever you are. No matter where you are. If you put up a fight, they send a drone and they will shoot the crap out of you, blow you sky high. They're not going to waste manpower on fighting you. They're going to send a drone and give you a couple of Hellfire missiles, and it will be game over for you. That's the kind of tyranny we're up against. A vast, very advanced technology that you and I cannot fight against. And this Bible is very clear. There is only one way through this, and that's by the grace of God. And that is for you to be saved, because you will die here. Death is inevitable. You will die sooner or later, either of old age. But if you think you're going to make it as a prepper, you couldn't be more wrong. You're fooling yourself. They already know where you are, and they're not going to come and ask for your surrender. All your prepper camps out there in America, you will be some of the first targets the drones is going to take out with Hellfire missiles. You will be leveled and no one spared. They don't care. They want their new world order. And a prepper, a guy like me, is a liability to their system, and therefore must be exterminated. And you will be exterminated. There will be no negotiations. They will send a drone and kill you. All of you. Forget all this prepper crap. It don't matter. It's okay to save up food for hard times that is coming. But in the end, they're going to come for you. Personally. And those who's already off the grid and think they are preppers and they're going to fix this problem and living out in the boonies, in their small camps, there comes Hellfire missiles. Next one. You all dead. They don't care about your guns. Who cares about your guns? You're dead. So who's going to shoot your guns? Your dead hand? Your cold dead hand? You have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea what this new world order society system, beast system, is capable of, and what their true intentions are. Their idea is to bring this world down to 500,000 or 500 million people total. Maximum. The rest of you die. Especially Christians, especially preppers, especially anybody who has the slightest lifted eyebrow against the Antichrist beast system. You will be exterminated. And those who's not being exterminated are those who is taking the mark. And when you take the mark, your DNA is changed forever, and you have reserved yourself a place in hell for eternity with Lucifer and all his pitiful angels. You think the mark of the beast is just a microchip? Oh no. It's going to make you unclean. This mark of the beast, when it's implanted in your hand or in your forehead, it's going to change your DNA so you become one of them. Just like in the days of Noah. Just like in the days of Noah. You won't become a giant, but you will have the same DNA sequence as the giants, the Nephilims. And that makes you an abomination to God. Because you're no longer a human being. You're no longer what He created in His image. You're one of them. And you made that choice to pledge allegiance, to stay alive for a time, knowing already now that sooner or later you're going to die of old age. And when you die, you're not going home. Any of you who took the mark, because you made your choice, because the choice will be between your Father in heaven, who loves you so much that He gave you His only begotten Son, and whoever shall believe in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life, and the choice of pledging allegiance to Satan himself and his angels. And that will be Satan's victory for you to take the mark. Not to kill you, but for you to take the mark. That's his ultimate victory over God. Because he has ensured that you, by your choice, has condemned yourself to fire and not to heaven. That's the only victory he can have. And that is why the mark of the beast is going to be implemented. Because that's the only way that he can have a sense of some sort of victory against his Father, who is our Creator. Our Creator is the Father of all things, even the angels. He made the angels, and some chose to rebel against him. Lucifer did. So the choice is yours. And you can prep all you want. You can go off the grid all you want. They're going to send a drone because they know where you are. Even if you don't have a cell phone, you've been breathing chemtrails for many years now. Barium. Barium is a radioactive isotope, and they can scan the terrain to look for traces of barium in accumulated quantities moving about in the terrain, and they will know that that is either a human or an animal. And they will very quickly find out that that is not an animal, but that is a two-legged individual with a soul, and you're dead. Dead. You won't see it coming, as Obama said. Predator drones, they won't see it coming. That's exactly what he was referring to. You will be slaughtered, all of you. And this country has already been destined to be completely empty for life, human life. Empty. Erased from the map, erased from history, erased from remembrance. That's the plan. America built this great empire to bring about New World Order through the United Nations, through NATO, and other alliances. And the ultimate thing is going to happen to America, that we all on this continent are going to die. All of us. And much of it will be by natural disasters. volcanic activities, earthquakes, floodings, cannibalism, pestilence, disease. This country is finished. I just want you to know that. So I hope, I really, really hope that you find Christ before a hellfire missile is going to hit you in your butt. Because they're not going to come out and fight and waste man power on that. They are perfectly capable of having a couple of thousands of Predator drones circling the skies for 24 hours a day, seeking out anything on 2 feet and eliminate it. They don't need a Terminator robot like in the movie. All they need is a drone. That's all they need. With missiles and a minigun. You will die. But it's okay to try and survive. Don't get me wrong. So out of 300 million people in this country now, I would think there will be 10,000 left. Badly wounded and demoralized. Like in the movie Book of Eli. Like in the movie The Road. That's the world of America in the future. Burned to the ground. Literally turned into a desert, desolate, empty of humans. I just can't help myself, even though I need to do this to make you understand what the moon is, because it's not a natural object. It's artificial. But it's still important. To me it is. I just can't help it than to say these things to you. You just have to understand that. There is a target on every one of us backs. A fat ass bullseye ready to be singled out by a Predator drone and killed. All of us, even the younger ones, that they know is going to cause a problem. And they already know. That's one of the things that the school system is doing. They're spying on your children, looking at their behaviors and what expressions they have of opinions. And that is being relayed into the system. That Brian over there in 2nd grade, he's showing to be a potential problem. He apparently has some parents that is putting in some rebellious ideas that is against our system. And Brian have a bullseye on his back from that day on. That's the world we're living in. Anybody who is a problem, anybody with influence who's becoming a problem, end up as a suicide. Just like Clinton's. A guy was found in the forest with 2 gunshots to his head. Both of them fatal. And they, in the report, called it a suicide. both was fatal. Instant fatal. So how can he end up with 2 when the first shot would have made it impossible for him to make the second shot? That's the kind of people we're dealing with. You got a problem? You dead. You don't take chances. They know what they want. They want their bloody new world order. What do you want? You want to go home? Make the decision. Because you won't get out of here alive. But you can make a decision where you're going when you leave. Feet first. That decision is up to you. And that's between you and God. It's not between you and your peers. You shouldn't give a rat's ass about what they think about you believing in Jesus Christ. That's between you and God. All you can do is be kind to them, show forgiveness, show compassion, and even if they beat you on your one cheek, you turn the other cheek too and still spread the gospel. There might just be one of those fools who's gonna wake up and find himself to be saved. That's where we are. It's that simple. It's between you and God and no one else. No one. Okay. What most of us don't stop to think about is why seasons happen at all. It is a common misunderstanding to imagine it has something to do with how close the Earth is to the Sun. It is not. It is due to the angle of the planet in relation to the Sun. I read that, but you need to get it again. You might have forgotten, because I went on a solo speech. Can't help it. Which is about 22.5 degrees, for what might be described as a vertical position. So, the diagram below, I already described the diagram, because there are some diagrams in the book, and I can't really show those, and I'm not going to, because, I mean, it's freaking logic to cage chickens, so I expect that you have intelligence enough to understand. If not, man, we're in a bad place. Okay. Shows how the Earth would look if it was standing upright and goes around the Sun, which would mean that the equator of the Earth would always point straight at the equator of the Sun, meaning that the entire equator zone would be a tropical zone, and meaning Australia would be always ice cold. I mean, the whole northern hemisphere, most of it, above the Arctic Circle would be frozen, and the Arctic Circle on the southern hemisphere would be permanently frozen, and the rest would be in a tropical and temperate zone. Obviously. But that's not the case. We have 4 seasons. Even on the equator line, they have seasons, but not like we do. It's a little different. If our planet really did stand in this position, the bulge of the Sun equator and that of the Earth would be closer together than the Sun poles and the Earth's poles. The result of this would be a super hot equatorial temperature of the Earth, just as I said. Whilst the polar regions of the Earth would be much colder than they presently are. Just said that too. Strangely enough, It is not so much in a case of the difference of distance between the Earth and the Sun that matters. It has more to do with the thickness of the atmosphere above any given part of the Earth, which is also true. Solo speech. I have spoken a lot about chemtrails, and I have dubbed myself. I have not heard anyone calling it that. I have dubbed that the backdrop. And the reason for why I did that is because we do have a backdrop. It has not, until they started chemtrailing, been visible. But if you look at when the sun sets and going lower and lower in the sky, it changes color. Not so much anymore. It used to. It became going from orange to a little more reddish, and then it became red, and then it finally sank behind the horizon. The reason for why it's turning in those colors is because the sunlight is traveling in your field of view when you're looking at the horizon. The sunlight is traveling through a much longer distance of atmosphere, and that is what is turning the light, because there's more atmosphere from your point of view to the sun, and that's why you are seeing the sun as being red. The higher in the sky, the more yellow it becomes, but today the sun is bright white. You can't look at it for a fraction of a second without it hurt your eyes. And there's another reason for that, and that you can find in Revelation. So on this account, they're right, that there are more atmosphere, but still they're not entirely right here, because when the sun is tilting, the northern hemisphere is tilting towards the sun, the 22.5 degrees. It's actually standing higher on the northern hemisphere in the summer period, meaning right above your head, pretty much, especially here in Texas. I can't see the shadows of the vehicles behind me. I have to do a swerve in order to see if someone is completely tailgating me. But as the season grows older or newer, I can see, because the sun is lower on the atmosphere, in the horizon, that there are shadows, so I can see in my mirror that there are a shadow behind me, and if there's a shadow, it means there's a vehicle. That's a way to see if you can't see if there's anybody there. So I'm not completely agreeing with what they're saying here, because it changes with the seasons. They're having the same effect on the southern hemisphere as the northern hemisphere. You get my point? There are more atmosphere that the sunlight needs to penetrate. Absolutely. But it doesn't change the color of the sun. And not even those seasons before chemtrail began. It is still this yellowish ball that we all grew up with, given that you are a generation of the 60s like I am. You would know that. But if you're only 15 years old, the only sun you're familiar with is this white ball that you're looking at. Just white. So, strangely enough, it's not so. In the case of difference in the distance between the Earth and the Sun matters, it is more to do with the thickness of the atmosphere above any given part of the Earth in relationship to the direction of the Sun. In the imaginary situation above, sunlight has to travel through far more atmosphere to get to the poles of the Earth than it does to reach the equator, thus greatly reducing the heat. Yeah, there's a melt-off of the poles in seasons. In the summer period, much of the Arctic ice is melting off, but that's not the same at the South Pole. But it is now because of global warming, climate change. But on the southern hemisphere, even though that they are constrained by the same principle as the northern hemisphere, the sun never sets on the South Pole. It does set on the North Pole at some point, but they also have midnight sun. But the South Pole have midnight sun all the time. The sun never sets on the South Pole, which is peculiar, but it don't. It's always light, not completely dark, as it is on the North Pole. I can't explain that. Might have something to do. No, I don't even know. I don't know. Maybe there's something I should look into why that is. And that's something Enoch is talking about, that the sun never sets in that place that he was. That was because he was on Antarctica. He was taken now. He's describing it. The sun never set. It was always light. Not full light, but it was always light enough to be able to see. Why is it not like that on the North Pole? I don't know. Strange. It's late. 3:14 a.m. Monday morning. Another important factor that reduces the heat at the poles is diminished power of density, where the sun's energy is dissipated across a greater area of the Earth curves away from the upright position. Correct. For example, a circle of sunlight, which is 1 kilometer in diameter, will hit the Earth's surface as near perfect circle at the equator, but in the extreme northern hemisphere latitudes, it will be distorted into a long oval due to the curvature of the planet. Correct. This means that the heat of the sunlight at the poles will be spread over several times the area and therefore be several times weaker. Correct. The planet Mercury is an excellent example of a world that is virtually standing upright in relation to its orbit around the Sun, apart from the fact that the little Mercury is so close to the Sun, its angle or inclination is obliquity. It is more probably called, would make a very uncomfortable place for humans. Are you kidding me? If it were possible to stand on Mercury during one of its very short 88 days year, the sun will rise due east every day, which is equal to 58 years days at the equator, and set due west. Mercury has equatorial temperatures that will keep lead boiling. You hear me? Boiling. Yes, probes sent from Earth has shown that the polar regions of Mercury are constantly covered in ice. So if the Earth were in this upright mode, life would be almost impossible across most of the planet, as I just described to you. The Arctic Circle and up would be under ice. It would be ice cold always. And the same on the southern Arctic Circle. So, providing only a narrow band suitable for mammals such as humans to survive. Even then, the sea and air currents would move wildly between the hot and the cold zones, causing catastrophic weather conditions with regions of permanent rainfall and others with none at all. Hurricanes and tornadoes would ravage many areas, and overall it seems extremely unlikely that higher life forms would ever develop on such a planet. I mean, yeah, if that was the case, that our Earth should all of a sudden tip up and become vertical, it will make it very difficult to survive. Very difficult. And you know, find out in Genesis where he says for signs and for seasons. The term seasons is already there. Now consider another imaginary scenario in which the Earth is tilted on its axis at a full 90 degrees relative to its orbit around the Sun, so that one pole faces the Sun at all times. You imagine that? Talk about a dead planet. It'll be end of life. Imagine that the North Pole tilted straight towards the Sun. That means, the South Pole tilted 90 degrees and pointing straight towards the Sun. The most of the world would be in an ice age right there. There'll be very few survivors. Okay. Then they say it. Okay. One of the poles, say the South Pole, will be permanently in daylight, stuck forever in a position equivalent to noon on a midsummer day in Central Africa. The Sun will blaze down from directly overhead every minute, every day. The North Pole, on the other hand, would be in a state of constant midnight. Indeed, all of the Northern Hemisphere would be in a constant night, and the Southern Hemisphere in constant day. And again, most people live on the above equator than below equator. Not entirely true. But the most fertile land is on the Northern Hemisphere, because there's more land up there. So that would make life very impossible. The dark side of the planet would never warm up, and it would be frozen solid with temperatures far below anything we actually experience. The region that is currently between our equator and the Tropic of Capricorn would see the Sun circling right around low on the horizon once each day. Because of the angle of the sunlight through the atmosphere, there would be very little warmth getting through, and the entire region would be covered in glaciers and swept with snowstorms driving down from the dark Northern Hemisphere. Antarctica would be utterly uninhabitable, being far hotter anywhere on our planet as we know it today. Only the southern tip of South America, Tasmania, New Zealand, and maybe the southern section of Australia would have temperatures that would be in a tolerable range. But it is hard to imagine what kinds of terrible weather anyone living there would have to endure, with freezing oceans currents moving from the north and very hot ones arriving from the south. Oh man, talk about tornadoes? Shit. Bad. A state of permanent fog seems certain, which would in turn block out the Sun. If the Earth orbited the Sun in either of the two modes we have just described, there would be no seasons at all, and almost certainly no higher life forms, meaning you and I, we would be dead. We wouldn't be making it. It would be impossible. Thankfully, we do have seasons, courtesy of the fact that the Earth is actually in an angle around the Sun by 22.5 degrees relative to the equator of the Sun, and at that angle is maintained by the Moon, which acts as a gigantic planetary stabilizer. Now, that's interesting. Because of this tilt, meaning, God created this artificial stabilizer, but someone moved in, and they're not your friends by any means. Because of this tilt, the Northern Hemisphere experiences summer when the Earth is on that part of its orbit that angles angles it more towards the sun. Therefore, the sun rises higher in the sky and it's above the horizon longer. Sorry, I'm tired. And the rays of the sun strike the ground more directly. Conversely, when the northern hemisphere is orientated away from the sun only rises low in the sky, is above the horizon for a shorter period, and the rays from the sun strike the ground more obliquely, meaning in a more oval pattern. Whilst this is true, that the extreme polar regions of the Earth frozen throughout the years, the tilt of the angle of 22.5 degrees ensure that most part of the Earth's surface gets a fair share of warmth throughout each year. This in turn means that by far the vast majority of water on the surface of the planet remains in a liquid state. All of life is utterly dependent on water and cannot exist without it. The band of temperatures at which water is liquid is really very narrow. The oceans of the Earth would freeze at around 1.91 Celsius, with boiling point around 100 Celsius, meaning the water will freeze if the temperature in the water is stable around 33 Fahrenheit. What that is in boiling point in Fahrenheit from 100 Celsius, I have no clue. I can find that out. So let's see about that. I have something called a unit converter on my phone. So let's look up temperature. I'm already on it. Celsius. Let's go there. 0, 1, 1, 1. There will be a temperature of 212 Fahrenheit. That will be the boiling point in Fahrenheit. The Earth is therefore extremely well balanced. The coldest temperature ever recorded was minus 89 or minus 128, that is broken last year, at the Vostok station in Antarctica, and the highest was 58 or 136 in El Azia in Libya. That is a range of absolute extremes of less than 148 degrees. So what is 148 degrees? That is some extremes. 148. That is 180.298 Fahrenheit temperature difference. That's a lot. I mean, that's almost boiling point. That's a freaking lot. That's crazy. Okay. Which is very little indeed in terms of the entire spectrum, but still it's a lot. The coldest anything can get is known to be absolute zero when all molecular motion stops. This occurs at a rather chilly minus 273 Celsius or minus 459 Fahrenheit. That's Nibiru. On the other hand, there is no known upper limit for temperature, but the hottest temperature in our solar system is the Sun's core, which comes in an impressive 15 million Celsius or 27 million Fahrenheit. The normal temperature range on Earth is such that there were a few parts of the globe that cannot support human life. We have a normal range of body temperature between 36.1 to 37.8 or 98 to 100 Fahrenheit. And yet the Inuit people live happily within the Arctic Circle, and the Bedouin travel the deserts of North Africa. The world's average temperature fluctuates slightly around the 14.5 Celsius and 58 Fahrenheit mark, which is comfortable for physical work. Of course, some people would say that the world is the temperature that we could not have evolved as we have if it was any different, but that is flawed logic. The Inuits are doing it, and the Bedouins are doing it, so I'm pretty sure we could adjust if there was a little fluctuations, but we can't deal with big fluctuations. We could just as well have evolved into a world where only small sections of the planet were available for us to inhabit. No other known planet has such narrow temperature bands and a range of temperatures that permit water to be liquid most of the time. In fact, water is a very curious substance altogether. On Earth we can see it at the same time in all its three states, as solid ice, as liquid water, or as a gas, steam coming out of a boiling pot of water. That's water, but it's a gas. Meaning also clouds in the sky are gas. Each water molecule is composed of just 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 oxygen, and yet it acts as a universal solvent with a high surface tension. Yeah, water is 600 times more dense than air. That's freaking hard. I used to do a lot of what do you call that? Not skydiving. You're in a swim and you're jumping from a platform down to the water. And I was jumping from 30 feet platform. That was my favorite. I love freaking jumping from up there. It's freaking awesome. And I remember once in a while I did not hit the water correctly, and man, that hurt. Oh man, I cannot describe that. It was like being whipped on your shoulders. If you slightly tilted a little too much over and you came a little too much on your shoulder part, back part, when you hit the water with pretty much 45 miles an hour, that hurts. That's really hurt. Ow, 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 ow. But you get up on the saddle again and you jump again. I just loved it. I'm not afraid of heights. I actually jumped from a much higher point than that. I have actually jumped from 60 feet from a crane in Copenhagen into the harbor. Took my roller skates off with my friends and we went up on the crane that was no longer in use, and then we jumped. Oh man, that was fun. It was fun. I'll do it again. Perhaps most surprisingly is how the density changes. Water has its maximum density at 4 Celsius. That means around 38, 39 Fahrenheit. Which means it does not only get lighter as it's warm from that point, it also gets lighter when it's cools. As everyone knows, warm water rises and convection currents, but it's also true that ice floats. Other planets in our solar system may have ice or steam, but only Earth is awash with life-giving liquid water. Liquid water has been absolutely crucial in creating the world that we know today, and as far as it is known, life cannot exist without it. As surely as plate tectonic of the Earth's hot core constantly create new mountain ranges via volcanoes and pushing up of mountains and land masses meet, so water is mainly responsible for flattening them. Again, constant weathering crumbles away the rocks and the mountains age on water. in the form of rain, ice, snow, is primarily responsible. Liquid water as stream and rivers also disperses the weathered rocks, carrying it down to the plains where it is distributed across the flatter land, bringing much needed nutrients to nourish life. Minerals. Lots of minerals in rocks. Even more nutrients are carried by the rivers to the oceans, where they offer the necessary food for aquatic plants that stands at the bottom of the ocean food chain. True. Why do you think the Gulf of Mexico is so sandy? Because after the flood and the water receded and left the bare land of North America, all that sedimentation, or not all of it, but much of it, was grinded up rock because of all the slushing, and all that grinded up material, including dead plant life and dead drowned dinosaurs. They were not killed by an asteroid, but they were actually drowned because of the flood. And mass graves in the United States of America is showing clear proof of that fact, that they drowned in mass graves. That's why in Utah, as an example, thousands of dinosaurs were found mangled together. The bones were mangled together, and very difficult for them to distinguish between each other, because it was just one gigantic soup of dead bodies. All these dead bodies and plant life was washed down into the Gulf of Mexico and buried deep, and that's why we are having all these oil reserves and gas reserves in the Gulf of Mexico. But most of Gulf of Mexico is sand, and is a very, very unstable area. Very unstable. And they knew that during the Gulf oil spill. Macondo Well 292 was a no-go zone for drilling because it was a very unstable zone. And they freaking drill right next to Biloxi Dome, which is an undersea volcano, and that one is big. Let's say 40 miles across. And they drill 4 holes, no more than 10 miles from it. Yeah. Yeah. They're insane. Okay. Of course, none of this would be possible if the vast majority of water on the Earth was not in liquid state. Only 2% of Earth's water is locked up in glaciers and the ice caps, and 97% being the water of our seas and oceans, and just 1% available for humans' consumption as fresh water. With only a small change in the overall temperature of the Earth, or an alternation of the seasonal patterns, the nature of the water on our planet would change. As we have seen, more pronounced planetary tilt could well lead to a freezing of the oceans, which would result in overall loss of temperature and surface of the planet, at the surface of this planet, with even greater freezing. On the other hand, if the Earth were not tilted at all, the equatorial regions would become unbearably hot, and weather patterns across the planet would be radically changed. In addition to the biodiversity that science are now certain has been so important to our evolution, I hate that word, might never have developed in a world with more polarized areas of temperatures. It has therefore been vital for our existence that the tilt of the Earth has been maintained at around 22.5 degrees for an extremely long period of time, and yet, bearing in mind the composition of the planet is very unlike the state of affairs. Venus is the nearest planet to Earth and the most similar to our own, but it has toppled over in the past, and other planets in our solar system show signs of having varied markedly in their tilt angle across time. The Earth is very active internally and highly unstable, yet, despite the few periodic wobbles, it keeps the same angle relatively to the Sun. But that is coming to an end. The Earth shall fall over. It shall rock to and fro like a drunkard. It shall be moved like a cottage and fall over. That's going to have a dramatic change on the climate. Astronomer Jacques Lascar, a director of research at the National Scientific Research Center, CNRS, and the head of a team at the Observatory of Paris, is in no doubt that the Earth would indeed topple over if there was not for the presence of the Moon. With computer modeling, Lascar showed in 1993 that all the Earth-like planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, have highly unstable obliquity, which in case of Mars, for example, varies widely across time between 0 to 60 degrees. Wow, I didn't even know that. Wow. The same computer modeling indicates that in the case of the Earth's obliquity would vary even more between 0 to 85 degrees, but for the stabilizing influence of our incredibly large Moon. Nobody knows for certain how long it would take for the Earth's obliquity to change significantly if the Moon is not exerting such a massive influence. There's a constant transfer of energy taking place between the two bodies, which in addition to stabilizing Earth's obliquity has also significantly slowed our planet's rate of spin. This constant obliquity has made Earth a perfect crucible for advanced life by providing many millions of years of stability for life to develop. From its symbols form to its complex patterns it adopts today. Although the Earth is significantly more massive than the Moon is still a very large body. Tides on the Earth's oceans, seas, lakes are caused by the gravitational interaction of the planet Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. Tides have an effect on dry land as well as oceans, but this effect can only be detected by careful measurement. Solar tides, the point of greatest gravitational pull by the Sun, are 12 hours apart, but since the Moon is also moving, lunar tides are slightly more irregular, occurring every 12.42 hours on average. The height of tides in a particular part of the ocean is dependent on a number of factors, such as the shape of any nearby land masses and the depth of the seabed. In some areas of the world, tides are hardly seen to lift or level the water at all. Well, in Denmark, we definitely have tides. You can walk a couple of miles out on the beach because the water receded, but that will only last 6 hours, then it starts coming back. In some areas of the world, tides hardly seem to lift the level of water. This is just as well for some of the low-lying places such as the islands of the Maldives in the Indian Ocean, because the average height above the sea level is less than 1 meter. In other places like the British coast, tides can have very huge range between high and low water because, well, in that area, Denmark is right next to England. It's no more than 300 miles apart. And the west coast of Jutland in Denmark is facing the east coast of England, and there the tides is definitely significant, very visible. Tides would not cease if the moon were not present, because they are also created by the sun. However, they would be much lower than they are now, because although the sun is massive and the moon is much smaller, the moon is extremely close and the sun so much more distant. And this interaction on solar and lunar tide that makes it rather complicated to predict when tides will occur and how high and how low they are likely to be. The highest of the lunar tides occur when the moon is either at its full or new mode, because at such times it is in line with the sun and the gravitational forces are added to those of the sun. Much lower tides are the first and the last quarters of the moon, when gravity of the moon and the sun are working against each other. Life in tidal margins of the ocean and seas has evolved to take advantage of the tides, either in a daily or monthly sense. Some species of crabs, for example, lay their eggs in the sand at the high water mark at the time of the full or new moon, so that they will be safe from marine predators during incubation. There are also many creatures that leave the ocean on the high tide at night to scavenge on the intertidal margins before seeking safety in the next high tide. Many shellfish are absolutely dependent on the ebb and flow of the tides for the purpose of feeding, and it is shown in the 1960s that oysters are sensitive enough to be aware of the moon's position either overhead or at the opposite of the planet. Oysters, which obviously has no eyes, were taken from the ocean and placed in tanks in the Rocky Mountains, where they began to open and close as they would have done in the ocean, had it extended so far inland. That's amazing. It's a bloody oyster. Man. Wow. Because of the stimulus such as current or wave motion were absent, it suggests that they were able to feel minute increases and decreases in gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. That's bloody amazing. As far inland as Colorado, that's bloody far away from the coastline. That's very far away, and still they react. If mollusks are very distant evolutionary cousins, can somehow sense astronomical movements, then there would be seem to be a reason why humans would not be able to do the same. This just might point towards an investigation as possible causation for variations in human behavior according to the phase of the moon. It probably is not too surprising that some creatures have learned to exploit tides, which are tiny these days in comparison to the remote past when the moon was much closer to Earth. The tremendous forces created by a very close moon would have generated much heat and might even have caused part of the Earth's surface to melt. However, this phase did not last at all that long, because the very transfer of energy that promotes tides is also causing the moon to drift further and further away from the Earth. This happens because Earth rotates around its own axle more quickly than the moon revolves around the Earth. The rapid rotation means that the tidal bulge of the Earth towards the moon is always ahead of the moon's position. The tidal bulge exerts a pull on the moon, and this increases the moon's overall energy. Meanwhile, friction between the Earth's surface and its own oceans is actually slowing the rate of the Earth's rotation. It is not much, but it does amount to around 0.002 seconds in a century. The end result of this dance will be that the moon will continue to move away from the Earth until a situation of equilibrium is achieved, which is expected to happen about 15 billion years. Wow. The moon will then be 1.6 times further out from the Earth than it is now, and the Earth will have a solar day that is equivalent to the orbit of the moon, which by then will be 55 days. However, we do not have to lose too much sleep about this eventuality, because the sun will have become a red giant in about 1 billion years before that, which in that time the Earth would cease to exist in any case. Over a huge period of time, the relationship between the Earth and the moon changes, so we find ourselves living in what amounts to a tiny snapshot of the overall situation. At present, the moon takes 27.3 days to go around the Earth, and because the Earth is also going around the sun, a full and a new moon are ruled to be slightly longer cycle than takes around 29.5 days. Both of these figures has been significantly different in the past and will be different again in the future, but the changes are very slow, and according to NASA, the moon is becoming more distant from the Earth by around 3.8 centimeters a year. Well, that's still significant. Perhaps it is just as well that the expanding sun will overtake us before moon does or gets to its final position relatively to Earth. By the time the moon and the Earth reach their ultimate stations, the moon will be too distant to exert enough influence on our planet to keep its obliquity steady. Bearing in mind the Earth's unstable core, this will almost certainly mean rapid and perhaps catastrophic changes in both obliquity and climate. Neil F. Cummins, professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Maine, has written about the consequences if the moon did not exist. He explained that the Earth would be turning so fast that a day would just take 8 hours and complex life would not exist yet. If higher life forms did even eventually manage to evolve, such as creatures would be very different to us without, for example, any communication thought through speech. One thing is certain: no moon would mean no humans. That could be true. Maybe God put it there for a very specific reason, to maintain an equilibrium, to maintain a balance. That could be for signs and for seasons. And the moon has definitely in the latter days showing signs, such as super blood moons, the tetrad, and super wolf moon. There's been a lot of stuff regarding the moon in the last couple of years. That's for sure. So that would be that was chapter 5. That was pretty interesting. Yeah. I must say the architect to all this definitely know what he's doing. That's our Father in heaven. He know what he's doing. So could it be when they were banished from heaven, after the war in heaven, God sent them away, that they came to the moon? I don't know. And from there they took on humanity in the days of Noah. I don't know. There's some questions that I'm fiddling with, and I don't expect to get an answer on those questions until the day I'm dead, because at that point in time I would know. I will have an answer to every question I have. I would be all-knowing, but I won't be like God, but I will be God-like. That's a big difference. That's what we should strive for. That is to be Christ-like, meaning God-like. Living through His values that He set for us, which values are very beneficial to us. And if we could do that, we would never have anything to worry about. And God would walk with us. He will come down here with us and walk with us. But we're in a situation where we will have to walk with God and strive to get to Him by being Christ-like. And that is where many humans fall short. Over and out. God bless you.